My name is Alyssa. I'm 29, live in Seattle, and until recently, I thought my life was perfectly normal. I work as a senior data analyst at a medical research firm. I'm not flashy. I don't overshare online. I like quiet mornings, black tea, and being invisible in a crowd. But everything changed the day I collapsed at work. It started as a headache, a small, dull ache behind my left eye. I thought it was from staring at my screens too long, but by lunch, the pain had spread down my neck. By 3 p.m., I could barely stand. They rushed me to the hospital, and when I opened my eyes, I saw her. My mother, Dr. Yvonne Hale, the same woman who delivered half the babies in our county, the one who insisted on checking my vitals herself. She smiled like nothing was wrong, but the doctor beside her, one I'd never seen, looked tense. He said they found something, a mass in my brain, non-cancerous, but in a dangerous location. Operable. But the sooner, the better. I couldn't breathe. A brain tumor? When? How? My mom placed a hand on mine. Alyssa, she said gently, this isn't new. I blinked. What? This was discovered a while back. I tried to sit up. What do you mean a while back? She hesitated. I found it during a scan last year when you had that dizzy spell. I felt my blood freeze. That was 14 months ago. She nodded. I didn't want to alarm you. It wasn't urgent then. My voice rose. You knew I had a brain tumor and didn't tell me? She reached for my hand again. You were stressed, working long hours. I thought you'd panic. I monitored it. But all I heard was betrayal. All I saw was the white coat, the calm face, the silence. She had looked me in the eye for over a year, watched me live my life not knowing I had something growing inside me. And she said nothing. I pulled my hand away. The room spun again, but not from the tumor. From rage. She was my mother. She was my doctor. And she had lied to me. She said she did it to protect me. But she wasn't protecting me. She was protecting her image, her career, her control. I stared at her and whispered the words that started it all. You committed medical malpractice. Her face dropped. Her voice went flat. Don't be dramatic. But I wasn't. I was deadly serious. Because that night, as I lay in that sterile hospital bed, unable to sleep, one thought burned in my mind. If I had died at work, I never would have known what killed me. And my own mother would have been the reason. So I picked up my phone and started recording everything. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of the pain, but because my mind wouldn't stop replaying her voice. I didn't want to alarm you. I stared at the ceiling of the hospital room, counting the ceiling tiles. Each one reminded me of the months I'd been walking around with a tumor in my head. She said it was non-cancerous. She said it was small, but she never said harmless. And I couldn't trust her anymore. I opened my phone and scrolled to the voice memo app, hit record. I am Alyssa Hale. I was diagnosed with a brain tumor yesterday. My mother, Dr. Yvonne Hale, confirmed she knew about it 14 months ago and chose not to inform me. I saved the file, titled it betrayal_001. Then I opened my notes app, started writing everything I remembered, the dizziness at work, the time she offered to run some tests and said everything looked fine, the time I mentioned waking up disoriented, and she handed me vitamin D supplements. I began cataloging every medical moment she'd handled in the past year, and how each one felt off. I was no lawyer, but I had enough common sense to know a doctor cannot legally withhold a diagnosis from their patient, even if that patient is their daughter, even if they think they're helping. When I was discharged the next day, she offered to drive me home. I said I was calling a rideshare. Her eyes narrowed. Alyssa, don't be silly. No, I said calmly. You're not my doctor anymore. She didn't argue. She just stood there as I walked out the door without looking back. At home, I pulled out the dusty folder labeled medical records from my desk drawer. I hadn't opened it in over a year. And there, slipped behind the allergy panel, was something new. A scan. Date, 14 months ago. Marked with my name. And circled in red, clear as daylight, was a small white mass near my brainstem. She hadn't just known. She documented it, she printed it. She filed it away in my folder and never said a word. I felt my hands start to shake. I scanned the page into my phone, titled the file evidence_001. That night, I called my friend Theo. He's a paralegal for a medical law firm, and he's one of the only people I still trust. I told him everything. There was a long pause on the other end. Then he said one word. "Document." "I am," I whispered. "Everything." He sighed. "You're going to need more than just your memory. You need proof of harm, negligence, violation of duty of care." "I have a copy of the scan," I said. There was silence again. Then, "Okay, that's something. That's a start." I hung up and looked at myself in the mirror. My face was pale, my eyes sunken. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small. I felt certain. Because if she was willing to lie to me as a mother, then she needed to answer for it as a doctor. The next few days were a blur of appointments. I scheduled a second scan through my primary care provider. Independent. Unbiased. When the results came back, the tumor was still there. A bit larger, still operable, still classified as a risk. But here's the part that made my stomach drop. The radiologist noted it wasn't new. They estimated it had been forming for at least a year, which confirmed it. My mother didn't just miss the diagnosis, she hit it. I printed the new report and placed it next to the old scan. 2 documents, 14 months apart, both with my name, both pointing to the same truth. I wasn't paranoid. I was right. Theo helped me draft a formal letter of intent. Not to sue. Not yet. Just a notice. A declaration that a malpractice claim was being considered. It had to be mailed. Certified. And because my mother worked at a private practice, it had to go to the clinic director, not her directly. The receptionist there still knew me. She used to give me lollipops when I waited after school. I wondered what she'd think now. I mailed the letter. Then I waited. 5 days later, I got a call. Not from the clinic, from my mother. I let it go to voicemail. Her tone was clipped, cold. I received a very upsetting message today from the board. She didn't say I'm sorry. She didn't ask if I was okay. She said, "You're destroying your family." I replayed the voicemail twice. The guilt sat heavy in my throat for a moment. But then I remembered something. The day after she got that first scan, she took Claire, my younger sister, on a weekend spa trip. She had time for massages, not for telling her daughter she had a tumor. That night, Claire texted me, "Mom's a wreck. What did you do?" I stared at the message, and for the first time, I didn't shrink. I replied simply, "I found my scan. Ask her why she never told me." Claire didn't reply. 3 hours later, I got a knock at my door. I didn't check the peephole. I already knew. I opened it slowly, and there she was. My mother, her hair tied back. No makeup, no lab coat. Just her. We stared at each other for a long second. Then she stepped inside without waiting for permission. "I don't deserve this," she said immediately. I didn't move. I didn't speak. She started pacing. "You think I'm a monster? I was trying to protect you?" "From what?" I asked. "From fear," she snapped. "From panic. From spiraling." I folded my arms. "You protected me from making choices about my own body." She went quiet. Then she said it. "You wouldn't have handled it well." Those 7 words told me everything. She didn't trust me. She didn't see me as an adult. She saw me as a fragile extension of herself. And that's when I knew this wasn't just a malpractice case. It was a war for autonomy. The day after she showed up at my apartment, I got a formal letter. Not from her. From her lawyer. It was short. Dr. Yvonne Hale denies all accusations of misconduct and reserves the right to respond accordingly if this continues. That was the moment I knew she wasn't just going to apologize. She was going to fight. And worse, she thought she could win. I called Theo immediately. He wasn't surprised. She's covering herself. Classic damage control. Even against her own daughter? He sighed. You're not her daughter right now. You're her liability. I didn't cry. I was past that. Instead, I dug. I went back through every medical moment she'd managed in my life. Every time she brushed something off. Every, you're just tired. Every, don't worry, I'll handle it. And then I found it. An old email from 2 years ago. Subject line, insurance claims. She had filed a neurological consultation through her clinic's provider portal, in my name, under her own credentials. I remembered that week. I'd blacked out in the shower. She said it was dehydration, but she had billed the clinic for a full exam, and I never saw a single result. I printed the invoice, evidence_002. Then I called the clinic, asked if I could request full documentation under HIPAA. They paused, then said, "We'll get back to you." That was red flag number 1. 2 hours later, I got an email. The request has been denied due to internal policy regarding intra-family medical handling. I sent that email to Theo. He called me 2 minutes later, furious. That's illegal. She's blocking your access. That alone is grounds for escalation. I nodded slowly. Then escalate it. I was done playing nice. 2 weeks later, the legal notice was official. Filed. Certified. Active. I was suing my mother for medical malpractice, for willful concealment, for breach of ethical standards. And it wasn't just personal anymore. The local medical board had been alerted. I thought I would feel powerful. Instead, I felt hollow, like I was dragging my childhood into court. I started getting calls from extended family. My aunt from New Jersey, a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. Is it true? Are you really doing this to your mother? And all I said was, she did this to herself. The hardest part wasn't the lawsuit. It was watching people pick sides. Claire stopped talking to me. My uncle posted a cryptic status online about disloyal children. And through it all, my mother stayed quiet. No calls, no messages, just silence. Until one morning I opened my email and saw a name I didn't expect. A journalist. She wrote, "I heard about the pending suit between you and your mother, Dr. Hale. I'm working on a piece about medical ethics and hidden diagnoses. Would you be willing to talk?" I stared at the screen. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. And for the first time, I considered it. Not just the lawsuit, not just the paper trail, but the truth. All of it. Public. I didn't answer the journalist right away. For 3 days, I left her message sitting in my inbox. Unread. Unspoken. But never forgotten. What would going public even mean? Shame? Exposure? Backlash? Then I remembered my mother's words. You wouldn't have handled it well. And I realized this wasn't about handling. This was about hiding. She hid my diagnosis. She was trying to hide the lawsuit. She was counting on my silence. So I wrote back, I'll speak, but on the record. We met at a quiet cafe on the North End. Her name was Mara. She wasn't flashy. She didn't shove a camera in my face. She just listened. I told her everything. The dizziness, the missing scan, the confrontation, the lawsuit. I showed her the evidence. She was quiet for a long time. Then she asked one question. Why now? I didn't even pause. Because if I don't speak, someone else like me might stay quiet and die. That was the moment I stopped feeling afraid. 2 weeks later, the article went live. Dr. Mother, silenced daughter, a medical ethics breach at home. It exploded. Thousands of shares. Hundreds of comments. People telling their own stories. People saying I was brave. People saying I was cruel. And then came the hospital board's response. An internal review had been opened into Dr. Yvonne Hale's handling of patient care. They didn't name me, but everyone knew. The same day, Claire showed up at my door. No warning, just a knock. When I opened it, her face was red, tear-streaked. "You humiliated her," she snapped. "No," I said calmly. "She did that to herself. She can't even go to work. She shouldn't have misdiagnosed her own daughter." Claire took a step forward. "Why didn't you just talk to her?" "I did," I said. "She called me fragile." Claire went quiet. She looked away. "She was scared," she whispered. "She was powerful," I replied. "And she used it to stay in control." That was the last time we spoke. The clinic issued a formal statement. Dr. Hale had been placed on temporary leave, pending review. I thought I'd feel better. But the truth? It wasn't satisfying. It was sobering. Because this wasn't just about justice. It was about grief. Grieving the mother I thought I had. Grieving the childhood I thought was safe. A week later, Mara sent me a message. "You've helped more people than you know." And for a moment, I let myself believe it. That this pain might be worth something. That maybe, just maybe, breaking the silence was the beginning of healing. But healing doesn't come all at once. Sometimes, it starts with wreckage. And I had just lit the match. It was scheduled on a Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. The deposition. I wore black slacks, a neutral blouse, and tied my hair back. Not for style, for armor. Theo met me outside the firm's office. He handed me a small folder. Inside was everything we had. The scan, the notes, the email, the timeline. All the things that proved what she did. And just before I walked in, he said, "Stay calm, tell the truth, let the evidence do the damage." I nodded. Inside, the room was colder than I expected. Fluorescent lights, 2 lawyers on one side, a court reporter, and at the end of the table, my mother. She looked different, smaller, like the coat she wore wasn't tailored for the version of her sitting in that seat. She didn't look at me. Not once. Her attorney began with the usual. "State your name for the record." "Alyssa Hale." Then the questions came. "Can you confirm the date of the original scan?" "Yes, February 3rd of last year." "And who ordered that scan?" "My mother, Dr. Yvonne Hale." "Did she disclose the results to you?" "No." "And how long until you became aware of the diagnosis?" 14 months later, after collapsing at work." They kept going. Deliberate, precise, professional. But every word I said felt like a needle, piercing the version of her I used to worship. Then it was her turn. They asked her why she didn't tell me. Her voice cracked. I didn't want her to panic. "Was panic a greater risk than an untreated brain mass?" her own attorney asked. She hesitated. "I believed I could monitor it safely." "Did she consent to that?" Silence. "Dr. Hale, did your daughter consent to you withholding her medical diagnosis?" "No," she finally whispered. My heart clenched. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because I wanted her to see me. Not the little girl who needed sheltering, the woman whose body she'd lied to. The deposition lasted 2 hours. At the end, I stood to leave. But she spoke for the first time. Not as a doctor, as a mother. "I never meant to hurt you." I turned to her, my voice steady. "You didn't mean to hurt me, but you did. And meaning doesn't undo damage." I walked out. The air outside hit me like a slap. Cold, sharp, clean. Theo followed close behind. "She admitted it," he said softly. "I know." That changes everything. I didn't answer, because something else had already changed. Me. That night, I sat on my balcony with a blanket and tea. The stars above felt impossibly far away. But for the first time, I didn't feel alone under them. I felt grounded, like even if everything broke, I had finally found my voice in the silence, and I was never giving it back. The day after the deposition, I got a group text. Sent by my aunt. It said, "Whatever this is, stop it. You're tearing your family apart." I didn't respond. I didn't owe her an explanation. Not when the silence had already explained everything. But then the calls started. From cousins. From family friends. From people who hadn't spoken to me in years. Suddenly, everyone had an opinion. You're humiliating your mother. Doctors make mistakes. She did it out of love. That one made me laugh. Love? Is that what we're calling it now? Because love doesn't file away a tumor scan. Love doesn't take away someone's right to know what's happening in their own body. Love doesn't gaslight you into thinking you're just tired. Then Claire showed up again. This time, she didn't knock. She waited in the lobby of my apartment for over an hour. The front desk called me twice. I finally gave in and came down. She looked thinner. Her voice was soft. Do you want her to lose her license? I shrugged. I want accountability. She winced. She's our mom. No, I said. She was your mom. Mine was my doctor first. And she failed at both. Claire's eyes brimmed with tears. Why are you being so cold? Because the warmth got me nowhere. We sat in silence. She whispered, She hasn't left her room in days. I raised an eyebrow. She left me in the dark for over a year. Did you cry for me then? She had no answer. Eventually she stood. Someday you'll regret this. I shook my head slowly. No, someday. You'll understand it. That night, I received an email from the hospital board. They were proceeding with a formal hearing. It was official. This wasn't just civil. It was professional, ethical, permanent. The board wanted my testimony, wanted my scans, wanted everything. I sent it. All of it. Every file, every note, every unanswered question. I didn't do it out of revenge. I did it because someone else might walk into her clinic tomorrow. With dizziness. With headaches. With trust. And I couldn't let silence swallow another voice. That weekend, Mara published a follow-up article. Whistleblower or daughter. When medical boundaries blur behind closed doors. It trended again, even bigger than the first. More people came forward. Not just about my mom. About others. Doctors who played God in private. Patients treated like secrets. People who never got to speak until it was too late. And suddenly, my story wasn't just mine. It was ours. A ripple in a sea of hidden truths. And somewhere in that rising tide, I stopped feeling alone. They held the disciplinary hearing in a private boardroom downtown. No cameras, no press. Just 5 senior officials from the Medical Ethics Board. A court representative. My mother, her attorney, and me. Theo sat by my side, silent but steady. They asked her to speak first. She stood slowly. She looked older, grayer, like the truth had been aging her the whole time. I never intended to harm my daughter, she began. I monitored the condition. I believed it was stable. One of the board members interrupted her. But you did not inform the patient. Why? She swallowed hard. Because she's anxious. She would have spiraled. I know her. Another board member tilted her head. You don't know a patient better than they know their rights. I sat motionless, letting every word hang in the air like exposed wires. Then it was my turn. I stood. My voice didn't shake. My name is Alyssa Hale. I'm here because I trusted my doctor. And because that doctor was my mother, I trusted her more. I handed them the scans. The email. The denial notice. I didn't just lose time. I lost agency. I lost peace. I lived for over a year with something inside my head that could have killed me, and no one told me. One of the officials nodded slowly. Thank you, Miss Hale. Then they dismissed us for deliberation. 20 minutes passed. Felt like 100. Theo kept checking his watch. I didn't move. Finally, the door opened. A woman cleared her throat. Dr. Yvonne Hale, this board has determined that your actions were in violation of patient disclosure protocols. I exhaled, quietly. Your license will be suspended for a minimum of 12 months, with mandatory retraining and ethical review before reinstatement is considered. My mother said nothing. Not a plea, not an apology. Just nodded, as if she'd already rehearsed that ending in her mind. I stood to leave, but one of the board members called after me. "Ms. Hale, thank you for your bravery." I paused at the door and said only this: being brave wasn't the hard part, being betrayed was. Outside, the sun had come out, the first time in weeks. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just walked quietly down the steps and into a new reality. A mother without a license. A daughter without guilt. That night, Mara called. The board's decision went public. I know, there's a lot of reaction. I expected that. Some people are calling you heartless. I smiled faintly. Then they didn't read the whole story. There was a pause. And then she asked something no one had asked me before. "How do you feel now?" I looked out the window at the darkening sky and whispered, like the truth is louder than the silence ever was. 3 weeks after the hearing, I got a letter, handwritten, no return address. But the handwriting was unmistakable. It was my mother's. Inside was a single page, just 12 lines, a half apology. She wrote that she, quote, regretted how things unfolded, that she never imagined it would come to this, that she hoped, in time, I'd understand. There was no mention of the word tumor, no admission of malpractice, just a vague sense of loss, wrapped in pride. I folded the letter once, then again, and slid it into a drawer, unopened ever since. A few days later, Claire messaged me. No preamble, just, "She's selling the house." I stared at the screen. Then she added, "She's moving away. Says she needs a fresh start." I didn't reply, not out of cruelty, out of preservation. Because I was done being the one who always had to say something. But then something strange happened. A law firm reached out to me. Not Theo's. A different one, representing my mother. They requested a settlement meeting. Apparently, she wanted to resolve the civil case privately. Out of court, Theo and I met with their team. Her side offered a financial settlement, a significant one. No trial, no more press, just a check and a confidentiality agreement. Theo looked at me, waited, but I didn't answer right away, because something about it felt wrong. Like they wanted to pay me to rewrite the truth. I asked for time. That evening, I walked the long way home. Past the old clinic. Past the cafe where I met Mara. Past the bench I sat on the night I got my second diagnosis. Every step reminded me. This wasn't about money. It was about memory. About the right to have my pain acknowledged. Publicly. Legally. Truthfully. So the next morning, I declined the offer. No settlement, no silence. We'd go to court if we had to. Theo backed me 100%. The other side sent one final warning. "If this goes to trial, your mother's career may not recover." I closed the email, then whispered aloud. She had a choice. So do I. A few days later, I did something I hadn't done in over a year. I booked a solo weekend trip to the coast. No appointments, no interviews, no strategy meetings, just me. And the sea. I stood on the sand at sunrise, letting the cold wind bite my cheeks. I thought about everything I'd lost, but I also thought about what I'd gained. Clarity, strength, and something else I hadn't expected. Peace. Because the truth, once spoken, can't be buried again. And I had spoken mine for the world to hear. The trial never happened, not because I gave up, but because she did. 2 weeks before the court date, her lawyer sent word. She would not contest. She would accept the civil claim as valid. And she would resign her medical license permanently. No settlement, no negotiation, just surrender. I asked Theo what it meant legally. He said, "It means she knows she was wrong." I asked what it meant emotionally. He said, "That's not something I can answer for you. Truth is, I didn't feel victorious. I felt quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm flattens a town. Not relief, not joy, just stillness. I didn't speak to her after that. She moved out of state, left the house to Claire, unfriended me on every platform, blocked my number, and that was fine, because I wasn't looking for a reunion. I was building something else, a life that didn't need her approval. I went back to work. Slowly, cautiously. At first, people tiptoed around me. Then the article hit its 3rd million views. And I wasn't just Alyssa from Data. I was the woman who stood up. HR invited me to speak at a corporate ethics event. I almost declined. But then I thought about all the people who messaged me, the anonymous names who said thank you. So I said yes. When I stepped onto that stage, my hands trembled. But my voice didn't. I told them what happened, the scan, the silence, the lawsuit. But most of all, I told them this. Speaking up cost me my mother. But staying quiet almost cost me my life. And in the silence that followed, I knew I had reached someone. Maybe several someones. That night, Mara messaged me one final time. Her new piece was going live. The headline read, "She didn't break her family. She broke the silence." I stared at it for a long time, then smiled, softly. Weeks passed, then months. I didn't mark her birthday, didn't send a card on Mother's Day. But one afternoon, while cleaning, I found the folded letter she had written me. I almost threw it away, but I didn't. I slid it into a file labeled closure, not because I forgave her, but because I no longer needed anything from her. Not an apology, not recognition, not love. Because I had finally given those things to myself. I no longer dream about the courtroom. I dream about oceans, and wide open skies, and the sound of my own voice when it finally says, "You were right to speak." And if someone out there is reading this, wondering if telling the truth is worth the fallout, let me say this clearly. It is. Even if they call you selfish, even if they say you destroyed everything. Because silence doesn't heal, truth does, and you deserve to live in the light of it, always. What do you think about Alyssa's decision? Was she too harsh? Or was this the only way to truly protect herself? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories about family,